And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to episode 85 of Uncapped Notes. This is a podcast from Hustle Fund to help founders learn what shouldn't be secret about building startups. So, this is actually the first episode that we're recording with the new live streamed format, which I'm really excited about. And this is also the first episode of Uncapped Notes that I, Weil, chief cheerleader at Hustle Fund, am recording. And so today's topic is about something that for founders is very exciting, somewhat scary, but couldn't be more crucial, which is hiring. And so to chat about hiring, our friend Sarah Lucena is going to join me. Sarah is a co-founder and CEO of Mappa, which is a voice AI-powered behavioral intelligence platform for teams and talent. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me. And yes, you are our guinea pig for this new live stream format of Uncapped Notes.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here, especially with you. So again, grateful from our side to share a little bit our two cents on when it comes to hiring.
We are very grateful for you and appreciate you taking the time to join us. So, Sarah, today I wanted to chat with you about hiring your first five employees as a seed stage founder. And so, not only are you building out a platform to actually help others do this, but you, in fact, just went through this on your own journey of building Mappa to what is now a team of 30. So, let me just start by asking you, why is hiring so freaking difficult? And I guess for you at Mappa, was it actually difficult?
Yeah, I think for any founder company or organization out there, hiring it's always a challenge. um, And I think, like, for me specifically, my own personal journey, it was more of a challenge before. And I guess it comes down to optimizing for the wrong signals, right? Like, we are always choosing between, what our paths will look like and the people that join us in that journey based on all the signals we are able to get. Some of those signals are more surface level, and they are the ones that we have used traditionally to make those hiring decisions. And that it doesn't apply only for hiring, right? Like, if you think investment, sometimes we are also optimizing for, surface level signals, things like who that person knows in my network, where they went to school, like what their, LinkedIn profile says. And those things can help you understand what this person, experienced in life, but they cannot ensure if they will actually work in your environment. And I think when you start actually optimizing for the right signals, it's when you start building a team instead of just hiring people.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point about the signals. And I mean, on top of that, like, how did you know when it was time to actually hire, let's say, like your first five employees? And then how do you even identify which roles you need to hire for first?
I guess when we couldn't do it ourselves anymore, me and my co-founders, we've been us the co-founding team for the longest, and we've divided ourselves and kind of like tackled every step of the process from the different angles. And it got to a point in which there were no more hours in the day, so we decided that it was time. um, Personally, I would say, like, in an orthodox opinion about that, I think I made a mistake as a CEO. I think we should have hired earlier, because I actually stretched the line to a point in which people were getting burned out, and that's not, I think, like, not ideal. But one thing that we gained through that is that everybody knew so deeply how the process worked and what our clients were looking for and why they were, choosing us and why they were coming back, that it made an easier process for us to, integrate other folks into that workflow. But I do think that, that the reasons why you should be hiring, yeah, first friction for sure. Like you must need it. I always say to our team, time is elastic. If you say a task will take 10 hours, it will take 10 hours. If you say it will take two, it will probably take two, right? Like, so how can you make sure that you are accounting for what it really takes rather than letting, time pass by? Um, but then there is also that core or the DNA of the company. You take Apple and Microsoft, for example, right? Like same and quote unquote products, but that very different, leadership styles that led the company to grow in different ways. One more towards consumer, the other one more towards business, and that kind of like you see that represented in every single hire that they have ever made. Us at Mappa, we've been very commercially driven from the get-go. We became cash flow positive within 6 months of doing business. So our first hires were operational and sales hires. That for us was important. But again, it really depends on the DNA of the company. If, we were more focused on, I don't know, like design, for example, which are a lot of brands there are and do an amazing job, that would probably have oriented our choices. But I guess there is no right answer to that question. I think anyone that says that you should hire X, Y, and Z first, it's, just telling their own story. At the end, you can follow that playbook and be successful, or don't follow that playbook and be successful as well.
I like that. I think that so much of like the startup journey is it's nothing that you can just cut and dry say one way or the other. But I do think that what you fundamentally said is like the folks that you bring on at the start are going to shape your culture. And so it's
Yeah.
important just to have in mind what it is that you want them to be carving out.
100%. And that comes from understanding yourself as a leader within that company, as in my case, as CEO, uh, and understanding the culture you were creating. Because at the end of the day, we differentiate people from business, but it's people doing business, right? Like, and the companies, especially in the early days, they fit a lot from their co-founders and the energy that they are bringing and what the directions they want to take with the business. So when we say at Mappa that we optimize for compatibility, that doesn't mean that we hire similar people to us. We just hire people that are compatible to our way of thinking and building. Because again, there is no right answer. It's really about what makes sense where, and how those pieces potentiate each other.
Totally. And so I guess when we go to the next step from that, I know a lot of founders have difficulty understanding what the best way to actually screen and assess candidates is. You have folks who just go like the traditional route of interviews. You have people who bring in candidates for co-working days, take-home projects, all sorts of things. How did you go about that, Sarah? And has that screening and assessment process evolved for you from those first few hires?
100%. And that's because our product has evolved, right? Like, so Napa is Napa's first customer. We use our own platform solution and process to hire our own collaborators. And we like to think that we are our first big success case, right? Like, so we came from being uh, a very small group of people to 30 people at this point. Just this January, we were able to promote almost half of our company, 12 people that grew within the company. And if you look at any of their profiles, they share something similar, and it's not what you would imagine. They're actually all underdogs. You would never hire any of the folks on our team based on their LinkedIn's. And I think that's the magic about compatibility, because no one else could be doing the job better than they have been doing so far. So what it has evolved for us, it's definitely how we have enhanced our capabilities, our technological capabilities to not only map behavioral traits, but to create matches that really work in real life. All solutions out there are really focused on streamlining the workflow, the process, right? Like, which is it's super important, but um, it's an efficacy problem. What we do at MAPA, it's essentially making sure that you are not going to be hiring for this role again in the next 3 months or the next year. So we are really looking into the outcome out of the problem. So that's how we do it, and I guess for us, we are lucky enough to work with ourselves.
I like that. Mappa was Mappa's first customer. I'm imagining your first fundraising deck was like a customer testimonial from Sarah Lucena.
Can you imagine how biased that is?
I love that. That's incredible. And so like post hiring, Sarah, um, how did you track if the new team members you were bringing on were in fact a fit? Because you mentioned like it's something that 3 months down the road you don't want to be hiring for that same role and having that person churn. So what are like some of the metrics that you were actually looking for to determine yes, this person was in fact the right hire?
Yeah. So when we went to market, we didn't had such a robust product at that point. We were not considered at that point a deep tech company, which we are today. At that point, we used, I would say, like surface level public data sets and information to actually get to behavioral conclusions, which is not the best way to go about it. It's a way to go about it. So I come from advertisement. That's something we've done for decades now, but it's limited. And what AI essentially opened was the ability to understand even deeper signals and map those signals in a way that was not possible before, just based on the level of data you have to actually manipulate to get there. What we started doing throughout that process and when we saw that opportunity was working with biomarkers. Biomarkers allows us to understand what we like to call a being behind the words, right? Like we analyze voice from a semantic and a prosodic aspect. So things like how many times you refer to yourself versus how many times you refer to other people, that allow us to understand if if you have what is your relationship with control, with teamwork, with ownership, the amount of verbs you choose to use, then the fluctuations within your voice, so the pitch, the jitter, even your breathing patterns allow us to understand your way of thinking. So how you are, integrating your ideas, how you actually essentially see the world, how you relate with other people. All those things are in our way of communicate, because that's how we've been socialized. That those are the things that we've learned, and then we express that through our um, speaking partners and processes. Um, by analyzing that, we were able to then map the behavioral traits of each individual and start creating compatibility matches based on those behavioral traits. When we say we don't optimize for similarity, it's not it's me saying that not everyone in our company thinks like me or speaks like me or see the world like me, but they definitely share my ways of working, my my form of understanding problems and going about them. I'm someone that likes to learn as I execute. I don't take a lot of time or spend a lot of time learning a problem before getting into the tactical aspect of that process. Which means that I need to work with folks that are comfortable with that. There are many people that needs to build conviction before they act, and there is nothing wrong with that. It's just probably not the best person to work with me, so they would probably go crazy. So that's what we are looking for, and that we do the same for our clients, right? Like no two companies are the same, no two people are the same. So at the end of the day, it's really looking into those traits that will enhance our powers. um, Again, one thing that for us it's it really matters, and that I think like we did a good job at Mappa, was understanding what those traits were. So we, some of them can be specified in a word, let's say, action driven. It's something that we look for. But then other ones are micro signals in their voices that our neural network is the one responsible to identify them and then cross match them with me. um, really understanding the individuals, I think like that's what really matters. And at this point, after 3 years of ingesting data and training our both our LLM and our neural network, we are at the point in which with under 1 minute of audio we can get there.
That's really fascinating. And I think the part that I really resonate with in particular is that you mentioned those traits are different for each company and for each team. I used to always think that the way that I worked was the best way to work, and then I realized everyone thinks that. And so
Yeah, I think we all do.
yeah, and so as you mentioned, like there are certain traits or, markers that are compatible with each other, and just because there are two that aren't doesn't mean that one is bad and one is good. It just means that they're not a fit for that pairing. So I think that that is actually a very unique thing that Mappa really bakes into how you guys are building this product out.
And even thinking matching, right? Like most of the solutions we know of, they are really focusing on vetting the candidate, the talent. It's really about the talent, right? Like who is this person? How they solve challenges, and how good technically are they, and so on and so forth. And they take whatever the company says they are, and assume that's the whole story, without diving deeper and do what we call a false matching, right? Like you were matching the information of the candidate with an assumption about the company. You got to understand both sides of the coin. At the end of the day, it's all people's interactions, right? Like we are speaking about hiring, but think sales, think customer advertisement, think even financial products. What you are giving to whom really depends on how they receive that value, and they interact with that process.
Totally. And so I'm going to ask you one final question, which is a bit of a hot seat. So, Sarah, have you ever had hires that did not work out? And if you have not, from what you've seen about hiring, what do you think is the best way to approach those situations? Because sometimes those can be difficult conversations to have for founders.
100%. And we definitely did. And the reason why we did had hires that didn't work is because we weren't 100% honest with ourselves, with what our needs actually were. And that used to happen more and more in the early days. I cannot recall like a recent hire that didn't work. But I remember at the early days, I was so preoccupied about, the perception of other people about my company and my leadership style, and kind of like tried it to paint a picture of what I expected, and the reality is different. I think like there is no self involvement without self knowledge. You got to know yourself to be able to work on whatever you need to work, and also enhance what is already good about you. Um, and one thing our technology gave us was that ability of even like open up our scars and say, hey guys, it's okay that this is part of your DNA. It's okay that you are all hungry to prove something, but you still need processes, and it's important that you admit that. Otherwise you are not able to grow. And that clarity, and it's not that you don't know it, but when in this case, the technology points that back to you and say, hey, you cannot ignore this anymore. We are telling you what you already know. So say it out loud, assume it, and then work towards resolving it. That's, in my opinion, the best path forward. And that's what we've been trying to do. We are not perfect. Of course, it's as hard as it is to any founder to build what we are building. But one thing I know we have is that commitment to become our best versions. And we believe that, understanding who we are and being true about that is the way to also being honest and fair with folks that are joining your team. And when those, situations happen in the past, I think like first we always try to acknowledge where we got it wrong. Because if this person, and one thing, right, like we got to those decisions pretty quickly. We have that understanding in the early days if something is gonna work or it's not gonna work. And with such a small, you know time or window, it cannot be the other person's fault. It's probably ours. So we try to look into our process, right? Like what we didn't communicate well, or what we didn't vet it for, what have we missed it, to not replicate that in the other processes. Because again, like people that are participating in hiring processes, I hate when there is like this discrepancy on like, like the company, it's in this high horse, and the candidates like there, and they don't know that. To the contrary, like this is this person's life, dreams, um project. Like this is someone that is embarking your journey, the one that you were convincing them that should be theirs as well. You have a huge responsibility with this other individual, and we take that seriously. So I think like we try to see where we got it wrong, and go from there.
That is such an empathetic approach, and I think that is a very honest answer to it. And I like what you pointed out, though, is that those mismatches, they're not necessarily failures. It's just that as with anything on the founder journey, it's an iteration. And so
Yeah.
hiring is a process that you iterate on, is that you get better as you grow with. So 100%. So, Sarah, last question. For those listening, I know you are cooking up a lot of really cool things with the team through Mappa and just on a lot of other personal projects. What's the best way for folks that are listening to keep up with what you're doing and also just support you and the Mappa team?
So I'd love for everyone who is listening to us to go to mappa.ai. It's Mappa with a double P, and try our demo. Don't take my word for it. Try it on your own voices. See what we are able to understand. Even if you are not hiring or looking for a job at this point, again, there is no self-evolvement without self-knowledge. And I think like we can give you some value at the end of it that will help you understand where you stand in your journey, and hopefully help you, take that next step. If you are hiring, we would love to partner with you, and help you see a different way of hiring, a way that it's not focused on the process, but rather in the outcome. And if you are curious on how to implement our technology in your processes or systems, speaking of matching and different markets and solutions, just hit us up. I'm either on LinkedIn, or you can also reach out at Sarah, Sarah at mappa.ai. So happy to interact with anyone who is curious about this stuff.
Incredible. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. First
Oh, thank
episode of the
you.
live streamed Uncapped Notes. We're fortunate to be in your circle and be a supporter on this journey with Mappa. So thank you, listeners. We will be back bi-weekly is what we're planning for now. So stay tuned for episode 86. Thanks again, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Bye.